Did Warrior Nun just get canceled twice? Welcome in, guys. I'm Alexis Jade, your friendly neighborhood queer actress, and let's get into it. Former Netflix show Warrior Nun was canceled about 2 years ago after it failed to meet Netflix's expectations for a renewal. Even though it was one of Netflix's most popular shows, it was trending worldwide, had the best critic and audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and was trending worldwide on Twitter after its cancellation. All of this, by the way, with absolutely no marketing help from Netflix to advertise for the show premiere. Anyways, it even captured the attention of celebrities who enjoyed watching the show, like Snooki. However, after relentless fighting to keep the show alive on Twitter through New York Times billboards, it seemed all hope was not lost. Showrunner and creator of Warrior Nun, Simon Barry, tweeted that the show was saved and that Warrior Nun was going to come back as a 3-movie part trilogy. Now, personally, I was excited but cautious because I've heard of shows getting saved before, and it happens very rarely, but usually from another big network. I had not heard of a show being saved and then turned into a 3-movie trilogy, especially with something as complex as Warrior Nun that had so many different storylines going in that it's really hard to then catch up a new audience to what's already happened in 2 seasons of the show. But nonetheless, I was optimistic. It was later revealed that Ben Dunn, who is the actual creator of Warrior Nun from the comics, was the one actually spearheading the whole thing. And that's when things started getting a little bit murky. Him and his team created a website that was supposed to have some reveal about the trilogy launch, and all it ended up being was a reveal asking fans to submit art for a new halo for Ava, which, if you're not familiar with Warrior Nun, it's kind of what the whole show is centered around, is this halo on the main character's back, in her back. Sounds really weird if you don't watch the show. But after a lot of unanswered questions and skepticism among fans on what the heck is actually going on with this renewal, there was a lot of just silence on Ben Dunn's part. And it wasn't until Simon actually appeared on a guest for a podcast where he was doing an interview and actually said that he was not part of the renewal as of now, nor were any of the writers that were involved in the original series, which, if you know the series, was a big part of why it was successful, is because it was so well written and the characters were portrayed so well. So essentially, there was no guarantee that any of the producers, any of the writers, or any of the cast or members from the original show were going to be part of this movie trilogy, which caused deep concern amongst fans. It caused me some deep concern on what this trilogy was even going to be, and essentially left us with a lot more unanswered questions than we even started with. And that's essentially where we've been left for the past year-ish, of just kind of sitting in the dark, wondering if this thing is ever even happening, or if the original show was ever even going to happen again, until the latest news just broke. In an article from Screen Rant, it states, Warrior Nun's return faces possible setback after production company financial probe. As you can tell by that title, it doesn't sound like good news. In the article, it states, and I'm just going to read it straight from the article right here so I don't misinterpret anything. CEO William Santor was suspended after reports of financial mismanagement within the company. Some producers on the company's independent films have reportedly not been paid in full, with Productivity Media Incorporated now facing an audit from the independent PricewaterhouseCoopers. It reported that upcoming projects could be impacted by the issues and subsequent investigation. Productivity Media Incorporation was named by Warrior Nun comic creator Ben Dunn as being a key party to the show's upcoming return. Full disclosure, I have not been able to completely validate these sources. I don't even know where I would find that. But if what is said is in this article is true, essentially, Warrior Nun has just been canceled twice. So if things couldn't get worse for the LGBT community, specifically women who love women, who enjoy seeing those relationships on screen, it just keeps getting worse for us, and I'm not sure why. I do want to correct myself real quick here and say that I have been saying Ben Dunn this entire video, but Dean English was actually the one who was in charge of running this entire trilogy, and Ben Dunn is the creator of the comics who's also involved, and I'm really not entirely sure on what either one of those roles are. So please let me know in the comments if I'm confusing things or mixing things up, but I honestly can't put it together. To me, the most frustrating part here is that Warrior Nun had a lot of momentum after it was canceled to find a new home and get a revival of sorts. Now, it was never going to be easy because Netflix technically owned part of the rights to the show. So anything that was part of the Netflix original that was not written in the comics was essentially owned by Netflix, at least the way I understand it. And it was going to make it difficult for anyone to pick the show up unless they were willing to buy the rights from Netflix. And maybe a company as big as something like Hulu or Paramount or something that was bigger would have potentially done so. But because the announcement was made at the peak of the momentum building for saving Warrior Nun, essentially it all stopped because it appeared the show was saved. And so the momentum stopped, the campaigning stopped, and now here we are with a show that has been essentially canceled twice. So what could have potentially been a saved show has lost all its momentum of its campaign to be saved or be renewed, and we are back at ground zero. And unfortunately, at this point, it kind of looks like Warrior Nun's not going to happen again. I know for me, as someone who is part of the community, who is also an actor and greatly appreciates like good pieces of work, this is by far, in my opinion, the best lesbian relationship representation we've seen on screen. The way the characters were written, the storyline, the slow burn, there was no toxicity, there was no cheating, there was no scandal, and even there was no death. The disappearance of Ava was revealed that she comes back later on. You know, there was no tropes it fell into. And it's just really disappointing because Netflix let go of a good one here. And it was a really good show, and the actresses who were part of it were incredible. The writers and the producers and the directors who were part of it were incredible. And it's just a shame that we lost another good one when we thought all hope was there and the show was saved. It wasn't. And now it's like a double-edged sword because not only has it been canceled, but it's been canceled twice. This is where we're left, and I'm not sure what to do about it, but needless to say, stay tuned because I will be having a podcast here on this channel where we will dive into Warrior Nun and all things Warrior Nun and this whole process that has happened and the aftermath and, you know, kind of the status of the film industry now when it comes to, you know, queer representation, specifically women loving women representation. I can tell you, as an actress in the industry who looks for these types of roles, they're not easy to come by. It's time to come together as a community and do something about it. So we will not give up. We will keep fighting for new and better content to come. What are your thoughts on the double cancellation of Warrior Nun? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you. I'm Alexis Jade, and this is Cheer for Queer.